This is a YouTube video explaining our group project for business finance. So here in the lessons tab of your Blackboard course, you will find your project information. So you want to go into there. I have some frequently asked questions here that you could refer to. This is the summarized guidelines that appear in your class syllabus as well. But so basically, this is just kind of a one-page summary of what the paper is going to be. So you want to select an industry and then two companies that compete in that industry. So say you pick home improvements and you select Home Depot and Lowe's. So those will be your two companies and the industry that they operate in. Then you'll, as we're following through the order of the paper, you'll do a brief history, like 2 pages, not more than 3, but I like it to at least be 2. Well, I guess for the individual companies, it should be no more than 2, but the industry could go up to 3 pages. But try to not keep it real brief, because that's the interesting part where you can tell me the little story about how that company came into existence, and also how did the industry, get to where they are today. So you got to do a little research, and sometimes there's little stories that go along with it. So, put a little effort into that. Then the bulk of the paper comes in here in number 3, where you're going to actually compute ratios. So the different parts of the ratio, though, the first paragraph of that ratio, or the first part, I shouldn't say paragraph, the first part of it is you're going to discuss the ratio itself. So it might be one paragraph, it might be a couple paragraphs, but you have to use 2 different sources. So you can use our textbook as one of your sources, but I want you to go outside and into the internet, because you could go to like Yahoo Finance, accountinganswers.com. There's a variety of different sites out there that give you a good explanation that's easy to understand as to like why that ratio is important. So like, why do we look at the current ratio? What is it telling us? And again, I'm always going to be looking for those 2 sources for you to get all your points. Then you're going to actually show the computation for these 16 ratios. So make sure you look at the ones that I have outlined here, because there's a couple that are not in the book, but to be honest, they should be. And then there's a couple that the book has that I don't ask you to do. So just make sure you're using these correct ones. And then look at the sample project for how you should set that up, because you're going to kind of create it in Excel where you show me the actual computation. So say it's the current ratio, it's current assets divided by current liabilities, and you're going to fill in those numbers. What is their current assets? What are their current liabilities? And then that is equal to the computation of their current ratio. And you're going to do that for 3 years for both the companies. And then the industry average you're going to pull, and you're going to get those online, because you won't compute those. Those you'll have to research and find. Then right below the table, you're going to show it graphically. So whether you're using a line graph or a bar graph, but you're going to show both of those companies and the industry average. So there's going to be a clear representation to look at that to say, hey, how are they doing? Do they all seem comparable? Is one way higher than the other? And then that takes us to see, as you look at those graphical presentations and these ratios, explain what's happening. So you may say, hey, these are all, within, they're very comparable to one another. They're all within the industry average, and there really isn't anything to explain. You're just going to say they're consistent. Now, there's definitely going to be some, and I want you to explain at least 8, which would be half of them, that you're going to say, okay, why does one company perform better than the other one? Or why is the trend going downhill for that one company? Or why are both companies better than the industry or worse than the industry? So as you're looking at those, you'll want to research those. And that's a little bit hard. You've got to go to press releases. You got to go to annual reports. You could Google, why is the debt ratio for Home Depot so high in 2020, and see what articles come up. So I want you to take some time, though, and delve into that for at least 8 of those ratios. All of them you at least have to summarize to say what you believe has happened looking at those ratios. But 8 of them, I'm going to expect some research. Then you'll have your present and your future outlook. It doesn't have to be financial. It says financial in here, but it can be operational. You can tell me like, hey, they're going to close stores down, or they're going to expand into China, or whatever they're going to be doing in the next couple years. But it could also be financial too. Either one. Then you'll have a section on accounting policies, which is kind of boring, but if you go to the notes of any of the publicly traded companies' financial statements, you should find a section on their accounting policies that you can summarize. Then you're going to have a conclusion and a recommendations. And just be careful with these two. They're not the same thing. So your conclusions, you're looking back over your ratios, pulling out some of the key ratios that helped you conclude whether they're doing good or they're bad. So maybe you saw, hey, this debt ratio is really high for Home Depot, so I'm going to put that in the conclusions that based on this ratio, we believe that there's, Home Depot is struggling with debt. And then you can even re-put that graph in there. Sometimes people will do that just to highlight it, and then again, though, a little paragraph discussing or why that's a problem, why that debt ratio being high is an issue. Or then maybe they're awesome in their operating profit. Maybe they've done great, and you're going to pull that in and say this is a huge strength. They're performing way better than Lowe's. They're way more efficient. Whatever. And I'm just making those up. I don't know if Lowe's and Home Depot have high debt or operational issues, but those would be the things you'd want to put into those conclusions. And then you want to say which company is the better investment. So if you had to choose between the two, maybe you'll say they're both great, or maybe you'll say they're both bad investments, but you're going to discuss them from an investment standpoint. And then your recommendations, you're going to look back at those conclusions and say, okay, well, what could they do that would improve their ratios? So if debt is high, what can they do to bring debt down? If their operating profit is great, how can they continue to maintain that or possibly even get better at that? So again, you're going to want to critically kind of analyze those and kind of come up with some game plans. And some of it could be what they're already doing in their future outlooks. Some of it might be just based on your expertise in the classes you've taken. What do you think they should do? But they definitely should be two different things. And if anything, your recommendations build on your conclusions. Your paper should be 40 to 60 pages, not counting your appendix material or your table of contents. And then I do recommend, as I say here, that you use VentureLine. So the VentureLine link is right there. So you could click on that. You do have to pay for that though. So you can go in and you can buy just your industry average for, I think, like $7.95. You could buy your industry average plus one of the companies for $14.95, or you could buy the industry average in both of your companies for $24.95. So I feel like if everybody throws in a few dollars, like $3 to $4, you're able to buy those. Now remember though, when I go back up here, they're going to give you the answers to these different ratios, but you still have to show me the computation that gets that answer. So it doesn't do the work for you, but it does give you a nice double check. So that is why I recommend using VentureLine, but again, unfortunately, you got to pay for it. Then finally, you have your oral presentation, and that should go 20 to 25 minutes, and every member should attend. If you are not, like say, if you don't live within 50 to 60 miles of here, say you're down in Columbus and you can't come up, you need to contact me and we'll set something up. But for the most part, every member has to come and participate in that presentation. If the person does not come, that person would lose 30 points and the rest of the group is going to have to cover for them. So again, that's all in your syllabus. That's another class. Okay, so then come back here again. Then we have how the grades are awarded, or how you earn your points. And this is important too. So there's a couple reasons this is important. So say if there's 7 members and I say, okay, everybody should have 20 points. We'll go back to this grading rubric to see how those points are awarded. So say if I said you had to have 20, well, maybe you're going to say, okay, I'll just do all these ratio definitions, and that's my contribution. Or I wouldn't recommend only one person do the ratio computations, just in case that one person, something happens to them or they drop the class. I like to see that split between 2 people if you can do that. But again, go through and make sure you're having enough points that you're doing your fair share of the paper. And you can see even the written paper, just organizing it, that's a big job. So somebody would get 15 points to say, okay, I'm great at Word. I can do the table of contents and all that stuff. I'll take over that job. Or maybe I'm awesome at a PowerPoint and I can take over that one. This one is not assigned, so really there's only 135 points that you're going to assign out to your members, and the team captains and the co-captains have to take their fair share of the points as well. Okay, then we have this again would help the team captain. I ask that you assign those, create this assignment log that shows how the points are awarded, and then submit it to me so I can make sure it's fair. This is a very long document. I think it's like 30 pages, but it gives you more details. Like say if you're assigned the histories and you want to say, okay, well, I don't completely know what I should do, read that. Or say you get the informative summary and you think, I don't really know what that is. Again, go back to this document and it gives you more details. I have 2 samples as well. So a lot of times I will say to you, have you looked at the sample project? Like if you don't know, if you're thinking, oh, I'm assigned this section, I don't know completely what's expected of me, or I don't know what those tables and graphs should look like, please go into the sample project. And then the sample presentation is actually a video, so you can watch them give it. So you're seeing their PowerPoint and you're seeing their presentation. Unfortunately, their names are in that. I did get their authorization, though, to show it to you guys, so you can use that also. Then the team captains and the co-captains can jointly or singularly, whoever wants to do it, evaluate each team member. So you should understand how you're being evaluated, just so you can get the most points possible. So this kind of gives you the average. If you score above average on this, I'll show you the next slide. If you'll get 105%. If you satisfactory, you get 95%. Required improvements is 75%. And then there'll be 13 different things that you are ranked on. So let me go back to that. And then here is the form itself. So then this is what the team captains or co-captains will fill out, and they're going to put your name in here, and they're going to check these boxes to say you did great at planning, but maybe you required some improvement on meeting those deadlines. You did a great job in accuracy, but the report preparation was a little poor. I mean, so they're going to go through each one of these lines and score you, and then I will calculate that percentage, and then that is the grade that particular student will get of the project. So even though you could be in the same team, not everybody gets the same score. It goes back to your performance evaluation here. And then again, just always go back and look through this sample project and look through that sample presentation whenever you're struggling. Because again, this is a good one to go back to. They did a good job of preparing the different sections and the formatting. So it's a good sample to look back at. Okay, so hopefully that kind of helps you understand the group project. Again, it's a main part of this class. And then the only other thing I'll say is, we always start off very fair as the groups are sectioned out. I choose the team captains and the co-captains, and then the groups form. But then you can never predict who's going to drop. So sometimes groups may start with 6 students and end with 3, and another group might stay, and have all their 6. So it's kind of the luck of the draw and how those teams come together. But hopefully everything will go good for your group.